He ended his own television show with 8 words: "If all goes well, I'll see you for season 6. Then a pause. If not, I won't. Take care, everyone." That was Jeremy Clarkson, lying in a hospital bed, in the final scene of Clarkson's Farm Season 5, filmed sometime in 2025. Watched by millions on Amazon Prime Video from 3rd June 2026. Most television finales end with a cliffhanger about what happens next on the show. This one ended with a genuine question about whether the man making it would still be alive. And the thing is, that wasn't the first time in 12 months that question had been asked. Go back to October 2024. Jeremy Clarkson is on holiday, a small island somewhere in the Indian Ocean. Sun, sea, the kind of break a man takes when he's been running a farm, opening a pub, filming a television show, and writing columns for 2 national newspapers simultaneously. He decides to swim from his boat to the beach. It wasn't far. He described it later as maybe the length of 2 swimming pools. He wrote in the Sunday Times, "But when I finally reached the beach, there was more water in my lungs than there is in Lake Superior, and I was mostly dead." He spent the rest of the holiday in a chair, eating cheese, drinking wine, telling himself it was fine. It wasn't fine. Back home at Diddley Squat Farm in Chipping Norton, Oxfordshire, things got worse fast. He woke up one morning feeling clammy, tightness in his chest. He loaded 30 pigs onto the slaughterhouse bus, because this is Clarkson, and apparently that's what you do first, and then noticed pins and needles in his left arm. He went to hospital, John Radcliffe Hospital, Oxford. Blood tests, an ECG, X-rays. The doctors told him he wasn't having a heart attack. Then they told him something worse. One of the arteries feeding blood to his heart was completely blocked. A second was heading the same way. Clarkson, in his column, asked the doctor whether death, which he called bankruptcy, was just around the corner. The doctor's answer, maybe. He was taken to an operating theater. The question on the table was whether he needed an emergency heart bypass. The surgeons went in through his wrist. They inserted a stent, a small tube to hold the artery open, and sent him home the next morning. He wrote, "Here I am, 2 hours later, writing this and sort of thinking, crikey, that was close." Days away from death, stent inserted, home by morning. That's Clarkson. But here's the part nobody talked about at the time. While he was recovering from emergency heart surgery, while a stent was literally holding one of his arteries open, he was also supposed to be helping Kaleb Cooper open a pub, The Farmer's Dog, in Asthall, near Burford, Oxfordshire, a building Clarkson had bought for under £1 million, formerly called the Windmill, opening on an August bank holiday weekend that Clarkson had famously, and catastrophically, got the date wrong for. The pub opened. The chaos was spectacular. Season 4 of Clarkson's Farm documented all of it, and somewhere in the middle of that, between the pub chaos and the heart procedure, Clarkson kept going, because he always keeps going. But something had changed, and he knew it. May 2025. Clarkson had a routine medical check. The kind he'd been putting off, the kind most men his age put off. The results came back. A biopsy was required. He disappeared from Diddley Squat for a few days. Farm manager Kaleb Cooper and land agent Charlie Ireland noticed but didn't ask. That's not how things work at Diddley Squat. People come and go. There's always something happening. Then one day, Clarkson sat them both down. The scene that followed, filmed in the familiar muddy setting of Diddley Squat Farm and included in the final episodes of Season 5, became one of the most watched moments in the show's history. "I've got cancer," Clarkson said simply. Kaleb's response, in true Kaleb fashion, "No, you haven't. Where?" Clarkson, "Where it is of no concern of anybody. I've known since May 2025. He told them it was prostate cancer. He told them it was aggressive. He told them it had been caught early." And then he said something that stopped both of them. He'd been waiting to tell them until after the harvest. He had known for weeks. He had spent those weeks working the farm, writing his columns, managing his businesses, carrying a cancer diagnosis in silence because he didn't want to disrupt the harvest. That is either remarkable dedication or extraordinary stubbornness, probably both. Definitely Clarkson. He told Kaleb and Charlie, "I was praying we could get the harvest done, and then I could go and get some treatment, but it's going to be slap bang in the middle." He knew the operation was coming. He knew it would be rough. and he went back to work and finished what he was doing first. The surgery happened in autumn 2025. The doctors removed approximately 10% of his prostate. The cancer had been caught early enough that the procedure was possible without a full removal. But the treatment that followed wasn't straightforward. The season 5 finale shows Clarkson lying in a hospital bed. He doesn't look like himself. That's the only way to put it. The man who has spent 5 series being large and loud and impossible to ignore looks diminished in that bed. He told the camera that some of his treatment had gone awry. He hinted at complications, a catheter that caused significant pain, and a later incident where he was taking blood-thinning medication for his heart at the same time as treatment for the cancer. 2 conditions pulling in opposite directions. 2 sets of drugs that didn't want to coexist. Some of the treatment has gone awry, let's say, he said. I'm going to be here for a while. And then, at the very end of the episode, he looked directly at the camera. If all goes well, I'll see you for season 6. If not, I won't. Take care, everyone. The show ended. The question hung in the air. Millions of viewers who had watched 5 series of this man, shouting at tractors and arguing with councils, and making life increasingly difficult for everyone around him, suddenly, genuinely, didn't know what happened next. April 2026. Clarkson had a PSA test, a prostate-specific antigen blood test that checks for evidence of cancer remaining in the body. The results came back. No indication of cancer. He described what that felt like in an interview with the Sunday Times published on 21 June 2026. The same weekend he confirmed season 6 was already in production. I am without a doubt, officially, the world's luckiest man, he told the paper. It was an aggressive type of cancer. It could have spread, it could have gone into the pancreas, it could have gone anywhere, and that would have been trouble. He had cheated the heart. He had beaten the cancer. And then he posted a video on Instagram. Now, the more observant among you will have noticed that I'm not dead. Classic Clarkson. But underneath the joke, and this is important, was something genuinely moving. Because what Clarkson said next wasn't about himself. He looked at the camera and said, "The reason why I'm fine is because the doctors caught the prostate cancer early, and they caught it early because I got tested." Then he talked directly to every man watching. I know a lot of you will say, "I don't want to be tested, because it means someone will have to put their finger in me." But it's just a blood test these days, and if you go to your doctor and he says he's not going to test you because you don't have symptoms, just lie. Say you have symptoms. Say you have to get up 32 times in the night, then the number that hit hardest. Because 12,000 people, men, to be honest, die every year in the UK from prostate cancer. Don't be one of them. Get tested. 12,000 men, every year. In Britain alone. The man who made his name shouting about cars and insulting governments and making everyone slightly uncomfortable used his cancer survival to tell other men to go to the doctor. That was 21 June 2026. He also mentioned something else in that same interview. He had met up with 2 other men recently who had been diagnosed with the same disease. Lord David Cameron, former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, and Giles Corran, the restaurant critic. 3 very different men. Same diagnosis, same conversation. Clarkson's farm didn't just make him Britain's most unlikely farmer. It made him, accidentally, a public health advocate whose reach goes far beyond anything a government campaign could manage. To understand why all of this matters, beyond the health updates, beyond the television, you need to understand what Clarkson's farm actually became. It started in 2021 as a documentary about a famous man doing something he wasn't qualified to do. It was supposed to be funny, and it was. But over 5 series, something shifted. The show became a record of a man genuinely changing. The Jeremy Clarkson who climbed onto a tractor in season 1, not knowing which end to point at a field, is not the same person who sat down with Kaleb and Charlie in season 5 and quietly told them he had cancer. The farm did that. The land did that. The reality of actually doing something difficult, year after year, with real stakes, that did that. And the people around him did that. Kaleb Cooper, now 27, married to Taya since 5th July 2026, father of Oscar, Willa Grace, and baby Ashton, born while Kaleb was finishing a row of harvesting and told Taya to wait. Charlie Ireland, land agent, the voice of reason that Clarkson constantly ignores and occasionally listens to. Gerald Cooper, the 75-year-old dry stone waller who himself beat prostate cancer during Season 3 and raised £28,500 for Prostate Cancer UK through a charity horse racing syndicate. Gerald beat it first. Then Clarkson. The farm that started as a television experiment somehow became a place where people faced real things and came through them. That's not what anyone planned, but it's what happened. Season 6 of Clarkson's Farm is filming now. Summer 2027 release is the current expectation. The show's Facebook page confirmed in June 2026 that production had already faced challenges, a break from filming, the ongoing bovine TB situation with the cattle, and relentless rain earlier in the year. None of that is surprising. When has anything at Diddley Squat gone smoothly? But Clarkson himself confirmed the news in a video posted to Prime Video's social channels. He looked directly at the camera, said he'd had a bit of a year, and announced that Season 6 is in production. He didn't do a health montage. He didn't get emotional on camera. He just said it, directly. Like he'd just finished loading pigs onto the slaughterhouse bus and had a few minutes spare. That's the bit people who haven't watched the show miss. Clarkson is not performing resilience. He is just, genuinely, stubbornly, infuriatingly, resilient. Heart blocked. Stent inserted. Back to work. Cancer diagnosed. Treatment survived. Back to work. Season 6 filming. Back to work. In the Sunday Times interview, Clarkson was asked about the last year, about the heart, about the cancer, about being in a hospital bed at the end of his own show, not knowing whether he'd make it to Season 6. He said, "Between the heart scare and the cancer, I have cheated death twice. I am without a doubt, officially, the world's luckiest man." And then, typically, he turned it outward. "This is why I have to say to everybody, please, please, please go and get checked. It's not uncomfortable, it's not undignified. And it's a no-brainer. I did, and that's why I'm sitting here talking to you 11 months down the line. 11 months. From diagnosis to remission. From that hospital bed scene to a video telling people to get tested. From, if all goes well, I'll see you for Season 6, to Season 6 actually filming. There are 12,000 men in Britain who die of prostate cancer every year. Most of them don't get to sit in front of a camera and tell other men to go to the doctor. Clarkson does. And he did. That might end up being the most important thing Clarkson's Farm ever produced. Not the planning battles, not the brewery, not the pub, not even the incredible, unlikely story of a man who knew nothing about farming and spent 7 years learning that the land doesn't care who you are. Just a man who nearly died twice, came through it, and used the platform he had to tell 12 million viewers to go and get a blood test. Drop a comment and tell us, did Clarkson's cancer announcement make you think about getting checked? And tell us where you're watching from. See you in the next one. There's a detail from those final episodes of Season 5 that deserves more attention than it got. When Jeremy Clarkson told Kaleb Cooper and Charlie Ireland about the cancer diagnosis, he didn't sit them down formally. He didn't call a meeting. He told them the way people tell things to people they actually trust, in the middle of something else, on the farm, surrounded by the familiar noise and smell of diddly squat. Kaleb's first reaction, "No, you haven't. Where?" was met with Clarkson's quick deflection. "Where it is of no concern of anybody." That exchange lasted about 5 seconds on screen, but the people who have watched all 5 series understood exactly what it meant. Because Kaleb and Clarkson have a relationship that the show has built over 5 years, and the audience has watched the whole way through. It started as employer and employee, expert and amateur, the boy who had farmed this land his whole life, and the man who bought it on a whim. Kaleb running behind a tractor correcting every mistake. Clarkson ignoring most of the corrections and then reluctantly admitting Kaleb was right. By Season 5, it had become something else entirely. Kaleb told interviewers after the episodes aired that Clarkson was his best mate. Not his employer, not his television co-star, his best mate. When Clarkson told him about the cancer, Kaleb went quiet. That doesn't happen often. The young man who has a quick answer for everything, who talked his way through 5 series of television with barely a pause, went quiet. And in the weeks after Season 5 aired, when journalists asked him about it, he talked about how much Clarkson's health had been on his mind. Then he went to his own wedding on 5th July 2026, drove there in a 250,000 pounds orange McLaren with his 5-year-old son Oscar in the passenger seat. got married to Taya Wilkinson at Mariscourt, a 500-acre working estate minutes from Diddley Squat, had his 3 children there, had the entire cast of Clarkson's farm there, and had Jeremy Clarkson there, still recovering from surgery, standing in the reception with an unlimited supply of Hawkstone beer that he'd brought himself. Weeks after telling the world he had cancer, at his best mate's wedding. That image, Clarkson at that reception, Hawkstone in hand, watching Kaleb celebrate, is the image that tells you something real about what Diddley Squat Farm has become over 5 series. Not a television set, not a business empire, a place where real things happen to real people who have become, somehow, genuinely important to each other. Kaleb got married. Clarkson came to the wedding. That's all it was. But if you've watched the whole show, you know exactly why it matters. Here's the thing about prostate cancer in Britain that Clarkson's diagnosis brought back into public conversation. Prostate Cancer UK confirmed in early 2026 that prostate cancer is now the most commonly diagnosed cancer in the United Kingdom, more common than breast cancer, more common than lung cancer. 12,000 men die from it every year in Britain. That is roughly 33 men every single day. But here's the part that makes Clarkson's survival so significant. When prostate cancer is caught at the earliest stage, the survival rate is extremely high. Treatment works. The cancer can be removed or controlled before it spreads. Lives are saved. When it's caught late, after it has spread to other organs, the picture changes completely. Dramatically. Treatment becomes harder. Outcomes become worse. The difference between those 2 scenarios is almost entirely determined by one thing: whether men go and get tested. Most men don't. Not because they don't care about their health, because they put it off, because they're busy, because it feels unnecessary, because nothing feels wrong yet, and so why would you go? Clarkson described his own version of this perfectly. He had a routine medical check that he'd been putting off. The kind of check that millions of men his age either haven't had or have been meaning to book for months. He went. They found it early. He's alive. I did, and that's why I'm sitting here talking to you, 11 months down the line. 11 months between diagnosis and remission. Clarkson's farm has had a lot of storylines over 5 series. Planning battles, harvest disasters, a pub that opened in chaos, a brewery that upset the entire UK drinks industry, a young farmer who went from earning 50 pence an hour to driving a £250,000 McLaren to his own wedding. But the Season 5 cancer storyline might be the one that actually changes something real. Not on the farm. In the doctor's surgeries across Britain where men are now booking appointments they'd been putting off. That's what a platform can do when you use it right. Think about what Jeremy Clarkson actually did at the end of Season 5. He filmed his own potential goodbye. Lying in a hospital bed, genuinely uncertain whether the complications from his treatment would resolve. He looked at the camera and said the words, "If all goes well, I'll see you for Season 6. If not, I won't," and meant them. Not as television drama, as the actual truth of where he was. That scene was filmed, it was edited, it was approved, it was broadcast, on the world's largest streaming platform, to an audience of millions. And then, 21st June 2026, in an Instagram video and a Sunday Times interview released on the same day, he confirmed that the goodbye wasn't goodbye. The more observant among you will have noticed that I'm not dead. Season 6 was filming. The PSA test from April 2026 had come back clear. He was, in his own words, perfectly fine. The man who ended his show with, "Take care, everyone," because he wasn't sure he'd be back, came back. And now he's standing in a field in Oxfordshire, filming the 6th series of a show that exists because a man who knew nothing about farming decided to try it. A show that has survived planning battles and harvest disasters, and a global pandemic, and a bovine TB outbreak, and the opening of a pub that went wrong in 11 different ways simultaneously. And now it's survived a heart procedure, and an aggressive cancer diagnosis, and complications in a hospital bed that made a man genuinely wonder whether he'd see his own farm again. Summer 2027. That's when Season 6 is expected. Diddley Squat Farm will be there. Kaleb will be there. Charlie will be there, Gerald will be there, himself a prostate cancer survivor, raising money for the cause, living proof that the diagnosis doesn't have to be the ending. And Jeremy Clarkson will be there, loudly, stubbornly, infuriatingly, brilliantly, back.